Uganda, a country on the equator, warm and with a fertile soil. The seasonal rains result in a green environment. And since time immemorial, this country has been home to one of the richest rainforests in Africa. The habitat for thousands of animal species, including iconic species such as the chimpanzee. A rapid growth to 45 million inhabitants in 2020, however, signifying an increase of 40% in the last 40 years, resulted in increasing pressure on the land. While business is thriving for some, many people still struggle to carve out a living to survive. Economic development, pressure for land, and unsustainable land use all led to serious concerns over the rapid destruction of the rainforest.
In the past 3-4 years, lots of new sugarcane companies have come into the area. The oil and gas developments have come into the area. A refinery is been constructed. Roads connecting to the oil exploration have come about, including an airfield. So the fastest loss really has happened in the past 5 years.
Forest has been lost at the most ordinary rate in this area. We were recording at a rate of about 10 to 15% per annum.
Forest is very important to me and it is my life. If I don't have forest, soon my land or the forest will become desert.
It is very urgent. Countries like Uganda struggle to feed their population in many areas, to develop their economy, and at the same time to fight climate change. They cannot do that alone because we also benefit from the products that are produced in Uganda. So we have to make sure that our products are produced in a sustainable way.
We are in the northern Albertine Rift, one of the richest blocks of forests in Africa. The forests belong to different forms of institutions, but the wildlife doesn't understand the difference. The wildlife continues moving through the different forms of forests. So we as EcoTrust, we would like to maintain that connectivity. We would like to maintain the connectivity between the blocks of forests. We would like to maintain the connectivity between wildlife and the people. We would like private sector to continue thriving in the area. We would like the different managers, the local government, the central government, the private sector, the local communities, to continue working together.
Pauline Nantogo works for EcoTrust, one of the local NGO partners of IUCN in Uganda. They lobby and create connections between local groups to combat illegal logging and unsustainable land use. EcoTrust is part of a project called Momo for Climate, mobilizing more finance for climate action. A project focused on local cooperation on sustainable development and attracting sustainable investors for these solutions.
So this tree is much better adapted. Yes. Sometimes things become complex because they are too straightforward. Everybody is aware that they are dependent on the landscape. Because of the competing needs, everybody is fighting for survival. So for us as EcoTrust, the innovation that we have come up with is to do landscape restoration as a business. We look at everybody as an economic unit. Every household is an economic unit. The private sector is an economic unit. So we facilitate partnerships in which the whole corridor is looked at as one huge value chain. Trees in Masindi here, very many people that have planted this Myzoxy seminae, their trees, they grow very well like this. Finally, you have something to pass on to your children, is what is driving you to maintain the trees, so that you keep them healthy, so that you can achieve your vision. Thank you very much.
Together with WWF-NL and Tropenbos International, IUCN-NL is implementing this program in 5 African landscapes and a landscape in Indonesia. Through this approach, more than 20,000 hectares of agricultural land have already been replanted with native and economically attractive tree species. Farmers who join the program plant trees on part of their land. They are assisted in making a land use plan. Where should the sugarcane be planted? Where can nature be restored? The cassava? Coffee grows best in the shade of the planted trees, etc. The financing comes from the carbon compensation.
When the farmer develops that land use plan, we use our expertise as biomass experts. We quantify the environmental services that are going to be accrued in terms of carbon sequestration potential, watershed services. So is it better to wait for all of it to be ready, or is it better to pick out the red cherries?
It's better to pick.
Then we also, on the other hand, work with private sector that have made a commitment to have a zero impact on the environment. Every year, private sector partners communicate to us what their footprint is in terms of tons of carbon dioxide that they contribute as a result of their activities, or even to watershed services through their value chain. And then every year we mobilize as many communities as possible that will eat up that footprint, that would suck up that footprint. So we enter into purchase agreements where we put a dollar value to every ton of carbon that is stored on that land.
The project creates a flywheel to engage local banks. Normally, they do not invest in small farmers. EcoTrust, with the help of IUC in Netherlands, will assemble larger groups of farmers who participate in the Momo for Climate project to plant trees on their land. EcoTrust offers them, with all the necessary paperwork, the possibility to receive an investment.
And normally the farmers get the financing from family, friends. A few of them have circles or saving groups on the villages. But now what we want to do is to get banks involved and finance the smallholder farmers. The biggest challenge the banks have been having is cost of onboarding the farmers, the smallholder farmers, because they are spread far and wide. So cherry picking a farmer becomes very costly for the banks. Secondly, the banks view the smallholder farmers as risky.
Often banks don't invest in smallholder farmers because they don't exactly know what is the risk that these farmers represent for a loan. What we can do is provide enough information to the banks so that they are confident to invest in these farmers.
Since the oil discovery, 100,000 people have migrated into this area, hoping to make an income, enough for food and to pay the school fees for their children. Roads and settlements are built at the edges of the forests. Trees are cut illegally for the cultivation of sugarcane, corn, or cassava. Timber is stacked and sold. It is often not clear who owns what. EcoTrust and IUC in Netherlands hire experts such as Richard Lamprey to map out the loss of the rainforest. With the satellite images in hand, Richard Lamprey and his team crisscross the landscape to find the owners of the most vulnerable areas. It is complicated because Uganda is a country where land ownership is generally not registered.
Done through a temporal series of satellite images where we can, for example, take an image from 2010, look at an image from 2017, and say where are the changes taking place, what are the rates of those changes, how we might prioritize certain areas for restoration, given that much of this landscape is now entirely transformed to agriculture, tea plantations, and also to sugar estates, and so on. Very rapid changes taking place. At the moment, I can't see any improvement, but I think that with enough resources brought to bear and enough focus on restoring key corridors, key areas, that we can actually demonstrate through example that this restoration is possible. My belief is that maintaining a corridor from Bugoma up to Budongo would be one of the most ambitious forest corridor restoration projects in the world. And we have to start small, demonstrate effectiveness in small areas before we can roll it out further.
That this tropical area is the habitat for chimpanzees is a blessing, Richard says. It's gaining awareness of people in Uganda and helps find financial support to stop further damage and to restore essential parts of the rainforest.
It doesn't have to involve huge amounts of money. It doesn't have to involve enormous changes in land use. restoration could be done at a relatively small scale along existing wetlands, along existing rivers, where the law already technically provides for protection. So it's a case of bringing on all the players, ensuring that somehow we have a coordinated approach.
NGOs like EcoTrust work with Richard to collect information and get landowners of strategic plots on the table to stop cutting trees for firewood and also to stop growing fast-growing exotic trees. Trees cut can be replaced by planting native tree species that can both provide local income and benefit wildlife. Ultimately, Pauline helps them unite in a local community association that protects the forest and provides maintenance and supports forest restoration. The game changer, according to her, is to combine local forces and create support, like Helen. She is the chairwoman of a large community that includes more than 3,000 farmers.
They have a management plan, and that management plan has a monitoring plan, and that monitoring plan has monitoring protocols, and they use those monitoring protocols to monitor the forest. They do patrols, and they have a checklist of the threats that they are looking to. You see where a tree has been cut, you see where other rattan can has been harvested, you see if someone has cleared a forest to grow crops. So they take a record of that because it's not allowed. So for some of the forests, once you remove the threats, the forest will regenerate on its own.
Our approach is to bring together local communities, local organizations, governments at the local, regional and national level, but at the same time connect this to international policymakers and companies that produce goods in this landscape. And only if you connect all these different actors, you can work towards a sustainable planning and management of a landscape like this while protecting nature.
It's a huge challenge for which solutions can only be found through strong collaboration between local, national, and international networks. IUCN Netherlands strengthens such processes by supporting local communities and NGOs to fight further loss of the rainforest. And the key word is connectivity.